this time with Mr. Robert Schober, the video director. He's better known working with bands like Metallica, Mastodon, Alice in Chains, Disturbed, My Chemical Romance, and others. Hello, sir.
Hey, I'm good.
What are you doing right now these days? Do you have some projects or something?
Yeah, I'm working on. I've been during the COVID lockdown. I've been sort of getting back into using Blender and learning Unreal. I'm really obsessed with like virtual production and kind of getting back into 3D. So I've been working on a short film for a feature I'm trying to get off the ground.
And do you have more jobs than usual because of the lockdown and all of that stuff?
No, actually, a lot of stuff. I've mostly been directing like live action videos and commercials like the last 10 years. So things really scaled back. I thought, I also work as a visual effects artist and supervisor when I'm not directing. So I thought there'd be more stuff to do from home, but it kind of dropped off all around. I animated a music video for Dan Orbach from the Black Keys. Had a record he worked on with he's now passed, but there's a sort of a southern rocker named Tony Joe White, and we made a music video for one of the songs that they remastered and released for the first time. That was back in October.
Yeah, cool. And was the video released or?
Yeah, it's up on YouTube. It's called Boot Money. It's kind of like looks like sort of like 50s, like 60s animation. It was a really fun project to work on. So
I will definitely check it out. And how did you get into this music business? Since you've been doing these videos for bands,
Yeah, completely by accident, really. I think it had a lot to do with like being a bad student. I actually I went to college like initially like as a pre-med, and then sort of veered off into like was very interested in like art history and critical theory and even like urban planning, and I wound up leaving school like in the middle of doing a thesis, and I'd always kind of like worked as like an illustrator on the side, and somebody in my hometown saw some of my illustration work and asked me if I knew how to animate, and I said no, but it sounded like something cool to learn. So I sort of like did like an intensive like self-taught like 2-week period where I put together an animated video for this guy, and he like got into some film festivals, and I don't know, it was enough encouragement to just go like, okay, I think this is a thing I can do. So I somebody offered me an internship in LA, and I flew out thinking it was going to be 6 weeks, and then I just wound up staying. Actually didn't go back to like visit my parents or family for like 5 or 6 years. After I came out here, I just decided to stay. So yeah, so I wound up like sort of bouncing around on couches and living in garages and stuff, and working at Starbucks, and like scammed my way into like working for a like a visual effects house in Studio City. Yeah, and just kind of gradually just sort of like built a reel by like borrowing people's computers and sort of like getting people to train me in various aspects of like what I was trying to do, because I had no formal training in film. So I just took the opportunity out here to see who would help me figure out what I was doing.
Yeah. And what was the first band that you worked with?
like a band that like signed to a label or something? Because I worked with the very first music video I ever made was for this guy named Brian Meese, who's been a friend for a very long time now, but he was just like a local singer songwriter in Florida who like hit me up and gave me the chance to put something together for him. He's the one who I said, then like put my stuff into film festivals and encouraged me to keep pursuing it.
Yeah.
But the first like band I worked with that was like signed to a label was a band called Fraustots. They were on Sub Pop. Um, it's like a band fronted by Brent Rademacher, who's in like The Tide and Beachwood Sparks, and it was just kind of cool, sort of like a how to describe it, kind of like an '80s like nightlife kind of pop music. And we made a video for them that it was like borrowed a video camera. The place that I was working at like gave me the keys to their office, and I would just stay till like 2 or 3 in the morning and like use their computers to put it together with.
Yeah.
So it was, I don't know, it was like 2005, I think. It was quite some time ago.
And I discovered that you were working on visual effects for the Ring 2 movie. So how did that happen?
Oh, for the Ring 2?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that's the company I was talking about. That's so long ago that I can't remember what I actually did on it. I may have only been like, I was actually surprised to see my name on it. I guess I was credited because I was a runner. I was driving hard drives of like film scans and stuff to and from the post house. I think it was Hammerhead in Studio City. I would drive stuff to Hollywood and like drop off like dailies of like visual effects or something. So um, I may have they may have set me up on a computer, and I think like they had written a program where you would just like go through. Oh, you know what? I do remember what I did. Um, there's a scene in the movie where I guess I don't know. There's a lot of like hair and scratches on some of the film, and it was my job to paint that out in every frame to like clean up the film uh, to work on.
Yeah, and
I think there's a scene where is Naomi Watts in that movie? I can't remember. Somebody's like coming up into an attic, I think. Uh, and but anyways, like the film was damaged, and I restored some of the film on it. Like I was like again, like I hadn't even made any music videos or done anything at that point. I was just kind of a PA. I was just an assistant.
And did you work on some other movie projects? Something related to, I don't know.
Yeah, there was another movie that I was kind of like an assistant on for that same effects place. I think it was actually like the last movie that Sidney Pollack made. It was The Interpreter. I think it was like Nicole Kidman and Sean Penn were in that. I don't remember what I did on that, except I do remember that the guys that ran the studio asked me to drive to Santa Monica to deliver a gift basket to Sidney Pollack, um, like for Christmas or something. And my car broke down in the parking lot of this little Santa Monica studio, and I guess my car broke down right behind like Mark Wahlberg's car, and his assistant came out and yelled at me to move my car. So yeah, that's all I remember about working on that movie.
Yeah, and since you worked with many of these bands such as Metallica, Alice in Chains, Ghost, Mastodon, Disturbed, which one was the easiest to work with?
Easiest to work with. Hmm. I mean, they've all been like really cool to work with. But I think like I've really enjoyed my working relationship with Mastodon a lot. Because those guys, like, especially like Braun, would like, you know, call up and say like, you know, got some crazy idea. Like this guy, like, you know, lives in the woods and smokes crystal meth and turns into Paul Bunyan and then kills the sun, or like, you know, let's do something in outer space. Or, uh, I mean, my favorite one recently was the one where he hit me up and he's like, hey, let's do like the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, but like it's all Grim Reapers and they're
Yeah,
going out and killing people.
yeah.
So
That's show yourself, right?
yeah, yeah, they were supposed to be in the video more, but they couldn't come out to LA, and so we were already on track to make the video. Um, Originally, what was going to happen was like Death was just going to kill them, but they couldn't come out. But they were like, well, we should still make a video, and so it was kind of a last minute adjustment where I decided I was like, well, what if we get guys that kind of look like you? And like the joke is just like Death keeps killing the wrong guys. And then we like had somebody in Atlanta like film them on the bus so that like, you know, they finally do die at the end of it. But yeah, that's how that came about.
And you also did the video for Curl of the Burl, right? Massive.
Yeah, yeah, that was the crystal meth Paul Bunyan one. Yeah, I guess Ron got the idea um, from there was God, I can't remember. I don't watch a ton of TV, but there was a like a reality show that was on like 10 years ago, and it, I think it was like guys who like, you know, smoked meth and would go out into the woods and uh, cut burls out of trees because I guess they have some currency as being like a valuable piece of wood for woodworkers to work with. And so the guys would like go out in the woods and like pull these burls out of trees and then go to like the flea market or swap meet and sell them and then buy more meth and go back out in the woods and that process would repeat. But I think that was like this TV show that they saw was like the inspiration for uh, for doing that video. And I had the idea that I wanted to uh, like shoot that video like entirely on a sound stage, like build like a fake little forest and stuff. Just because like I really love how like making like an outdoor scene inside of a sound stage looks. I'm just like a big fan of that look.
Yeah, and this is Bran, like the most creative guy in Mastodon.
Yeah, I'd say he's got a pretty amazing uh, imagination. There was a video that they wanted to do one time that he it was I can't even remember all the details, but it was something about like a life-size cell phone that falls in love with another cell phone, and one of them falls in the pool, and they have to like put it into a giant bag of rice to try to revive it. And I think there was a cell phone funeral or something, but yeah, no, he's always got like really fun ideas, and they've been supportive of like weird ideas that I've thrown back at them. Like I really wanted to do one about like live action role playing games. I always thought that was kind of a cool thing, and that was for High Road.
Yeah, and you also did the Oblivion video, right?
Yeah, yeah. When was that? It's like 2008 or 2009, I guess. Um, yeah, that was a really cool video to work on. It was all green screen, not a huge budget. I wound up like I was able to hire a matte painter and I wish I could remember his name, but there's a matte painter who put together like the images of the ruined city. That guy actually did the mats for the third or fourth Terminator movie, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
And he made the painting of the space station on the outside. But yeah, I wound up. I think I spent like 9 or 10 days just like not sleeping and like compositing every shot in that video by myself because there was no budget for visual effects.
Yeah.
So I used to do that a lot, and I try not to do that so much now. It's nice to get sleep.
Yeah. And how did you get in touch with Metallica guys?
So I think what I'm trying to remember the exact timeline, but this would have been around the time that I'd gotten the chance to like work with Mastodon. I think we'd done like Sleeping Giants and then maybe Divinations, like the one where the caveman kills and eats them. I think those two had come out and they'd done pretty well. Maybe we'd done Oblivion too. The timeline's a little fuzzy, but either way, I think that I'd done some stuff with Mastodon that Warner Brothers liked, and so um, Devin Sarno, who was the commissioner. You know what? Okay, I remember what happened. I'd actually come up with this idea for a music video where I wanted to do this like really crazy sort of half animated, half live action video that was like the H.G. Wells story, like War of the Worlds, but I wanted to like make it like a documentary. And it would have been like set in like World War One and had like these like steampunk elements, uh, like these big like steam powered robots and things walking around and like trench warfare against Martians and stuff. Um, and so I put together some concept art for that and wrote up a little thing, and then I pitched it to Devin over at Warner Brothers, and initially I think the pitch was put together for the Mars Volta. So I was trying to pitch this idea to Mars Volta, and I think that I think I think it was being seriously considered, and we were putting a budget together for it. And then I want to say that whatever they were working on, like I think Omar's mom might have passed around that time, and so like promotion of the record was all kind of like put on hiatus. And but they said, hey, do you want to pitch it to Metallica? Like, you know, like obviously like Hammett is like super into science fiction and stuff. Actually, I think all the guys are pretty into sci-fi, but like especially like Kirk. And so yeah, so we wound up getting on the phone and talking with them uh, about the concept, and it wound up obviously evolving quite a bit. But yeah, it started out as like a weird like a World War One alternative history sort of fake documentary for the Mars Volta, and wound up becoming like this kind of sort of sprawling 20th century fake documentary thing for Metallica.
Yeah. And did you do all these animations for the video, or were they all done by?
No, so there was I did a lot of concept art. I worked with somebody on like I storyboarded the entire video. Some of them actually, I think like at the end of the Metallica video, there's like some like robots walking around, like piling zombie corpses or something. You can like see these robots walking around at the end of the video. Those were the robots that I created for the Mars Volta video. I just wound up like reusing them in this video because like I thought the design of them were kind of cool. But the zombies were designed by a game artist. This guy named Andy Nisbet modeled all of the zombies, and a friend of mine, Sam Sherritt, like I can't remember if you can see it or not, but there's like a there's like a like a rack of meat, like ribs or something, like in a slaughterhouse that like that comes to life. But I think it might not be noticeable, or maybe there wasn't time to animate it. But yeah, my friend Sam Sherritt put some stuff together. This guy Dylan Jutt designed and animated the creature, the little spiny sort of scorpion looking guy. This guy Dylan did that. He was actually like just out of school. It was like one of his first jobs. I thought he did a really good job with that. I did make the I actually like taking photos of like insects and stuff. Like there's some like X-rays of the creature, and the X-rays and the animations of the creature were like actually made out of like it's like photoshopped images I did in like After Effects, and it was like crabs or insects or something that I sort of collaged together to like try to create like an X-ray version of it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then my apologies to him. His name is slipping my mind, but there was a guy who ran a company that I believe was called Bluefish Effects, and he was in charge of coordinating a lot of the animation. And then a guy named William Wyland, I think, did the all of the like I wanted like painterly like mats like backgrounds for all of this. Like I was trying I was very like have you ever seen like the old like the Superman cartoons from like the 40s and 50s
Yeah, yeah.
where and they were all done by like rotoscoping people and then had these like really beautiful painted backgrounds. So I wanted something that looked like that. Like that's kind of how I like set the look for it. So like the zombies were done in 3D, but I'd created like these like shaders in Blender to make them look like that they were like painted on a cell. And then I everybody would just like give me back assets. Like somebody would do like animations of the zombies, somebody would give me the matte paintings, and then I would bring them all together. I would like hand draw like the fire effects. I like created all the film effects for them and like animated the cameras, and I know it was crazy. I think that was like I think we put that video together and like we did in less than a month. It was like either October or November of that year. I think the total time was like 27 or 28 days or something. There was not a lot of sleeping.
As always.
Yeah, I mean this one in particular was very extreme.
And so you had like 28 days to finish the whole thing, right?
Yeah, it was a super fast turnaround.
And you mentioned the movie War of the Worlds. And was there any other movie that maybe inspired this video?
Um, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, like by the time the video became like what it was, like I you know, like I said, it started out as like a War of the Worlds thing, but like obviously like the final version of it has nothing to do with that anymore. I want to say like I, kind of a weird story is that I guess Metallica's manager is this guy Peter Mensch, and when we were on the phone, he kept suggesting that we should like do something like Cold War and like you know do something with zombies, or make it about like the Russians and the Americans, like do something like in the Cold War. Like I think he was trying to like kind of like zero in on sort of like the comic book aesthetics and things that like the guys liked, and so they kind of like zeroed in on like they're like let's do something like kind of like 50s like Cold War era. Um, and from there, like I don't know, I still had it in my mind that I wanted to do something that was like that started earlier, like turn of the century. And so like that's kind of how I arrived at this idea of like, I've always been like fascinated by like the Tunguska event, and I don't know, somehow this whole storyline kind of crystallized over time, where like I was just kind of like fascinated by like, I feel like the story of the Soviet Union, and now the story of the United States, like have kind of played out in similar ways. Like, this sort of like like if there's any kind of like a story arc in this music video, it's the idea that like there's sort of like this sort of like, in the first act, like this Tunguska event occurs, and they like, you know stumble across these spores, and like the idea is like they, see like medical potential for it, right? And then it like becomes the Cold War, and it's this sort of paranoid mutually assured destruction thing. And then you like wind up with this like sort of like 1970s like sort of hyper normalized like neoliberalized sort of thing, where, you know whatever this experiment was created for, like isn't really doing much of anything, except, they're reanimating corpses like in a morgue in the middle of nowhere. um so yeah, I don't know, like I kind of like thought there was this kind of like an interesting arc to go from like this sort of like utopian revolutionary period of an empire to like the height of the power and the paranoia that came with it, and then sort of the aftermath of it. So it kind of goes, like turn of the century, like around like 1917, to the 50s, the Cold War, and then finally to like sort of like, the late 70s, early 80s. And then there's like kind of like weird sort of uh, epilogue that I did, where I like found this kind of interesting piece of footage from Arkansas, where there was some sort of like chemtrail fallout or something, and I kind of reverse engineered that into the story, and made the idea that like chemtrails were actually, something that existed because we were, basically spraying as a defense against these zombie spores.
Yeah, that's the really cool concept, because it's so elaborated, And
Yeah.
I remember I was watching this movie called Planet Terror, and it reminded me of the video. The movie is from like 2007.
Mhm.
It's basically some horror comedy zombie movie,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like God, like 2005 to 2010 is like, you know, peak like zombie, uh like yeah, I would say that was like peak zombie in the popular culture. It would be like the mid to late aughts. It was such a popular thing. I was a little bit worried about doing zombies even in 2008. I thought that they might be like a little played out or sort of overused in the popular imagination. But I don't know. I Walking Dead and everything, like I like the phenomenon of zombies as a pop cultural interest seems to be like a zombie in itself. Like it just keeps going. So
Yeah. And the snippets of the original video were released via this Kremlinology blogspot. So whose idea was that, to promote the
yeah,
video? like that?
I had all of these like wild, like ambitious ideas that like I guess were maybe a little too far ahead of like where people's heads were at for marketing like at the time. But like you ever see like the Blair Witch Project?
I don't think so. I
So
mean,
so the Blair Witch Project was like this horror movie that like was a huge sensation. Like I think it's like at I want to say maybe like Sundance or something. It was like it's a very low budget horror movie that basically some guys like took some actors out into the woods and like made it's like one of the first like found footage movies, and it's just shot on like a digital camcorder, and these like college students go into the woods to look for the Blair Witch, and people like wind up disappearing and dying, and um it's a very unpolished movie. It really just feels like found footage, and that's what like scared people, was because before the movie came out they built this like elaborate like one of the earliest viral marketing campaigns around it. They put up a fake website that seemed like it was like something made by like some sort of an academic who had studied the tape and like the lore around it. This is like 1998, 1999, I think, because I remember, I remember like this came out like maybe my first year of college or something, and I just remember like looking at the website on the computer, um, and my friends and I were totally freaked out by it because they put these like tiny little out of context clips from the movie like onto the website, and yeah, it was like very unambiguous as I mean very ambiguous as to whether or not like is this real? Is this like a put on? Like what is this?
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I had the idea of like I wanted to create like a blog that like and we wound up doing stuff like all the dates on the blog were like a WordPress or whatever platform that blog was made on. Like the security on it wasn't great because you could actually go back and like retroactively date the posts. So you could like date the posts like 3, 4, 5 years earlier than when you'd actually written them. So um, I like hired a friend of mine from school to kind of write and sort of piece together some sort of a plausible like blog that kind of felt real. Um, and then I would kind of like feed him like stories like of things that I was kind of interested in, like the reanimation experiments or things like that. But beyond that, I kind of just gave him free control to kind of like just write a guy and write about whatever. So that it just felt very authentic and real. And then I think the story was like some guy like found these tapes at a garage sale or something,
yeah, yeah.
and then like the label like Warner Records let me come up with like um we came up with like a fake story that like when the band was in Russia they like found some weird tapes, and they or like some film reels, like I think like Kirk was like at a flea market or something like that, and the idea was that he found these reels and they were going to make a video out of them or something. But I just think it's kind of funny because they let me write up like a fake news story, and then they gave it to like Yahoo News and they just ran it like it was a real story. Like uh, so the label and Yahoo News or whatever were kind of working hand in hand sort of as this like promotional instrument for the label.
Yeah, I mean that's a really cool story, and I think that people bought it, when it came out, because like you said, part of it is animated, part is mockumentary. And how challenging was to combine these two elements to be a mockumentary plus animated video?
I guess it was fairly. I guess it's fairly challenging just in the fact that like I was trying to combine so many different types of footage, and I wasn't sure if people would like buy it as like one piece, like the way it was put together. Um, but like all of the stuff at the beginning, like everything's either like photoshopped images that we filmed, or like the stuff in the first part of the video was all shot at like an abandoned hospital, like in Boyle Heights in LA. And we kind of like I used like that the the revival of organisms documentary. I used that as kind of like an sort of an inspiration for like the look that I wanted the uh, the, the video and the beginning to have, and we shot all of that stuff on like one of the last batches of like Ektachrome film. It was all like color reversal, so like it actually looked like film from like the 1930s or 1940s.
Yeah, I mean that documentary is like sick, because what they try to do is to decapitate the dog's head and then rewire it to the body. It's fucking sick, man.
Yeah, it's it there's I don't know what you've heard about that particular film, but I've read varying accounts and talked with people about it, and heard different things. One of the things that was speculated was that it's not a real it's not a real film. It's a piece of it was a piece of
Yeah.
propaganda to scare Americans into thinking that the Soviets had you know figured out how to like endlessly revive fallen soldiers in the battlefield by reattaching heads and limbs and things like that. And it's said that like if you look if you examine it closely, like the dog's head is sort of poking through a hole in a table. It's not actually a severed head. But I think there's also an argument that like actually like yeah the experiment is real. Like the perfusion technique that they did in fact work. I mean, there's footage of like, I believe that it could be real because there is verified footage of like them doing this with like monkey heads in like the 60s and 70s. Like it's definitely a feasible medical procedure. But yeah, I've heard that the dog one is not in fact real, but who knows?
I mean, I don't know if they did it, but I know that Mengele did it, and this crazy Japanese guy, Shiroishi, who is basically a
Mhm.
Japanese Mengele.
Yeah,
Because, I mean, it's completely the same thing, but on humans, which is even sicker. So, anyways, it's scary shit.
definitely. Yeah.
And what was the actual idea behind the video? What did you try to achieve with it?
Like I said, it started out as a completely different idea, and then just sort of like, uh, you know, kind of there were suggestions thrown out. What if there's zombies? Like, what if it's about the Cold War? Um, you know, and I guess I thought that like by focusing it specifically on one era and just doing like something kind of traditional, um, I don't know, it would be hard to like tell any kind of a new story or anything. And like I said, I thought it was interesting to have it span many decades in order to try to kind of tell a story about like how the idealism of a young empire that eventually collapses on itself, like, like sort of showing the sort of like repressed like neuroses or something of I don't know, just kind of an sort of a surreal sort of psychoanalysis of how how the mind of a government apparatus like slowly unravels and becomes sort of a shadow of itself.
Yeah. And if I'm correct in this video, the US nukes the USSR, and then the Soviets fight back by creating these biochemical weapons. Am I right?
Yeah, well, so the kind of what happens is that it's the idea was that it's a found piece of footage where the Soviets are talking about the fact that the Americans have created nuclear weapons, and because of this, there's like no longer like a parity of arms between the two of them. Like warfare has become like radically unbalanced, and so the Soviets, come up with this idea to create this unseen biological pathogen from the spores that originally they want to use them like for medical purposes, like to save people, and then the spores like now are being appropriated to be used to turn people into zombies, and in doing so like allows them to play it off as a natural event that takes the Americans by surprise.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, at the time I just thought I was like that kind of sounds like a clever kind of a cool piece of like preemptive warfare that could be done like in response to to the Americans creating nuclear weapons and using them and threatening people with them. And then there was the idea of delivering them like with the balloons, right? And that was actually inspired by um, there were bombs that reached the American West Coast during World War II, that uh, uh, Japanese forces like actually sent balloon bombs to the United States, and I believe one of them detonated in like Oregon or Washington State. And so that was where the idea for well, how do they get the virus, like the spores over here? And I was like, yeah, what weather balloons? That's kind of a inappropriate technology for the time.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that the Japanese actually had a plan to attack the United States by these biological weapons, and the plan was called Cherry Blossoms at Night. And it was
I think it
supposed
was
to be
anthrax, right?
not just anthrax, but probably other types of agents, because it was probably anthrax and some other stuff, but I can smallpox and stuff like that, plague,
Mm-hmm.
bubonic plague, typhus, stuff like that, and they wanted to execute that plan in late September of 1945, but the Americans bombed them with nukes, and they surrendered. But they had a plan to do it, and they did it, but it wasn't on a massive scale, because these balloons were were easy targets for the defense, and
Right.
they were pretty unpractical. But the idea is, crazy enough, because they wanted to launch these balloons like from a submarine and then, to the western coast. So it's fucking scary.
Yeah. I mean, and again, a lot of a lot of the things in the video were kind of just inspired by like a fascination from when I was younger by like just the sort of weird sort of apocryphal like lesser known stories about sort of the weird lengths that the various sides of the Second World War kind of like went to try to get the advantage over one another, and then further like the Cold War, the various you know bizarre and completely unethical things that you know the Americans and opposing sides engaged in.
And I think that they're like Tweedledum and Tweedledee. They had the same weaponry, they had the same plans, the same methods of destruction. Throughout the whole Cold War.
Yeah. I I do think that I'm sure there are different views about this, but I do think that the United States was particularly aggressive and somewhat unfair to the Soviet Union after. I mean, like in the United States, kids aren't really taught the the immense hand that the Soviet Union had in stopping Hitler and the Axis powers in Europe. Um, Americans are sort of happy to give themselves credit for that, and it's often glossed over quite a bit, and how uh, how sort of crazy the U.S. went and trying to contain the USSR, like in the 50s and 60s. And again, I think the use of nukes was incredibly unethical. The fact that they used one, let alone two, completely unnecessary, I think. Yeah, I don't know. War's pretty horrific. Um, and yeah, I think being able to kind of like tap into some real anecdotes and allusions to technologies and strategies that both the U.S. and the USSR were toying around with over the 70-year period. Like, it kind of makes for a perfect little horror film, which is what I hope the video wound up being.
Yeah,
Um,
and
yeah, the video, the song I think is like actually like based on like a line from like I think it was like an H.P. Lovecraft story is
yeah, the Hound
where the
of Tin.
guys. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, this video just like they really let me just kind of like veer off like in my own direction and like do my own thing with it. They were just like again like suggest like doing something based around the Cold War, and this is sort of where I wound up with it.
And how real was the threat of the nuclear war back in 2008? Did you feel that it might maybe escalate between the United States and Russia or vice versa?
I don't, it's funny because I actually forgot that had happened until when you sent me the questions. I forgot about that. That was when Bush was still president, right?
Yeah,
The skirmish that they had in Georgia, I guess.
yeah,
I mean, I personally think that like NATO has overreached its intended purpose and overstayed its welcome. Probably, I think I think the U.S. is perhaps a little too. I mean, it definitely is too aggressive in its territorial disputes and dealings with the Russians. I think. Yeah, I again, I don't know. Um, you know, I think it is crazy that the United States continually like finds themselves like on the brink of war with Russia over like Estonia
yeah,
or Georgia or Ukraine.
yeah,
Um, uh, yeah, but I no, I I do remember being very disturbed and upset for about a week during that incident. Um, but how close it actually came to a real nuclear war, I have no idea. I mean, I I don't know how old you are, but like I do know that like there were times where I some of the closest times we've come to nuclear war were like under Clinton, um, where completely by accident. Like I think there was like a launch um, above one of the Nordic countries, like a satellite launch that like was detected by the Russians to be an American ICBM, and there was an order to launch a counter strike against the United States, and uh, this Russian captain of a submarine like didn't think that sounded right, and basically stood down and saved the world from having a nuclear war.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, it happens all the time, but we don't know it when it happens, because these it's always classified for like 20 or 30 years, and there was this Operation 1983, Able Archer, where NATO was provoking the Soviets by creating this military exercise, which is basically a nuclear war on Soviet Union, and these Soviets, they felt that they are going to do it, during the exercise. And there was this guy Stanislav Petrov who basically didn't want to send the nukes up, but if he did, there would have been no world, because these weapons can destroy like the whole planet.
yeah, yeah, there have been some very very brave individuals who have you know uh, put their foot down and said no, and made the choice to not wipe out everyone on the planet like that. It's pretty crazy. I know too. Like, I mean, I'm trying to remember, but like during when I was researching for this video and kind of looking for different stories and little things to kind of incorporate into it. Like I remember coming across like I know that in the United States, like in the 1950s, there was like a B-52 that accidentally lost uh, a hydrogen bomb. I think fell out of the cargo bay and landed in the water, like off the coast of North Carolina.
Yeah, and,
Uh,
and it also happened in Spain, where they
yeah,
had like basically the bombs fell, but they didn't explode. and they were using all these all these superpowers were trying to test the bombs, in what happens scenario when the bomb falls, but by accident, and they were
Yep.
dropping these bombs on some tiny little islands to see what happens. And then when the bomb falls, it doesn't explode, but the plutonium is all over the place, so it contaminates the site. So it's pretty crazy when you think about it, how close we were to total obliteration.
Yeah, yeah. And many casualties that are often overlooked too are, I like the United States, like the testing on Bikini Atoll, like, just in general, um, the effects of fallout against, Pacific Islanders in those areas during the 50s is atrocious. I think, also, like, I think, there were effects on indigenous peoples and Siberia and northern parts of Russia during tests that took place up into the 80s. But yeah, it's it's crazy that scientists can sort of determine, you know, the date that things were manufactured based on whether or not, I think it's like the presence of cadmium or some other, there's some isotope that anything after 1945 like has in it. It was extracted from the earth after nuclear testing started happening.
Yeah. And do you know that the Americans have a plan, to fight the zombies in case of a zombie apocalypse? They actually did a plan. And
Yeah, I think I do know what you're talking about. I do think that it wasn't quite literally like a plan for a real zombie invasion. I think that what had happened was that it was more of it was like a thought experiment or an exercise that the military came up with, um, that did a couple things. Like, one, they discovered that, like, as a thought experiment, like, it was a great way to teach like the basics of disaster preparedness. Like, I think like the CDC in the United States also does like zombie exercises to like educate the public and stuff. But more importantly, I think like the military doing like a white paper on like a zombie invasion probably just like, gave them cover for, somewhat openly talking about probably some sort of a real like urban operation overseas or something without like the press finding out what they were actually doing.
yeah, and the video ends with this secret lab in Krasnoyarsk. And why in Krasnoyarsk?
That's a great question. I was trying to remember why that was. I think maybe I think maybe I was like looking up like, was that possibly like the site of like a gulag or the site of like
No, I
some
think
sort
that
of a
was like
nuclear
some.
power plant or something?
I think that they had like some nuclear defenses there.
That's what it
Some
was. Yeah,
some
then
nuclear.
that,
Either it's
yeah,
like a military city that's not on the map, or they had
that's what it is. Yeah.
some.
So it had like intrigue, right? Like, it seemed like the sort of place where you do a top secret experiment.
Yeah,
That's how I that's, yes, that's how we came up with that idea.
because I think either they had some radar for the missiles, something like that. I can't remember, but and
Was this there's something like I'm not going to remember any of the details from this, but there's like a very famous like a nuclear accident, I think, that occurred in the Soviet Union where there was a like some sort of a like a plutonium or chemical spill or something that went downstream, like down a river, and like wound up like
Uh,
killing like a town like
that's
at the
that's
bottom.
probably Kishtim nuclear disaster, but that's like
Yeah, I think that might be what I'm thinking of.
1957 or I don't remember, but it was like the Chernobyl was on a scale 7, but this accident was on this disaster scale level 5. So it's not
Oh,
as big as Chernobyl, but it was horrible because it was estimated that that killed like 10,000 people or something like that, and they didn't do anything. They just they wanted to see what will happen,
hmm.
which is sick enough.
All right. Yeah.
And did this video spark any controversy in Russia?
I don't know. I have you heard of any? I would love I would love to know if if anybody saw it or what they thought. I mean I don't know. I was worried about. I mean obviously like the piece was meant to be like this sort of like epic, very far fetched, highly like fictionalized, sort of epic science fiction horror thing, but because I wanted it to be like a mockumentary or feel like it was something real, like you know, it had to be couched in the story of real actors, real players, and so it came down to the U.S. and the United States. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I I hope I've always hoped it wasn't seen as being like Russian phobic or anti-Russian or anti-Soviet. I don't think that things are ever so black and white, good versus evil, that sort of thing. Um, but I mean, obviously, the video goes quite over the top with like having the Soviets doing like a zombie apocalypse. But again, I the Soviets never did a zombie apocalypse, but the Americans absolutely did a nuclear holocaust, um,
Yeah,
which I think is unforgivable and terrible, and the devastation spread with proxy wars in the 50s and 60s, like
yeah, but
were unnecessary and out of line. So I wouldn't want anyone to take away the idea that I think that I think the United States is a perfect entity by any stretch, and that you know that I really thought that the Russians would do like a horrific zombie attack or anything.
yeah, and in this video, part of it is in San Francisco, basically, when the Soviets attack. Why did you choose San Francisco?
Because it was on the West Coast. Because it like because like I needed a city like on the West Coast where the zombie like where the spores would come from the weather balloons, like where it would start. Um, and I mean, San Francisco, like in the 1940s, like just looks really cool, right? You've got like the Golden Gate Bridge and stuff, and like I think that was a thing. Also, like like the guys are from there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like and like Exodus was from the Bay Area,
The
so
whole
like it was a nod to like the history of Metallica a little bit too, to set it there, and it worked out perfectly. That again, like this attack would start on the West Coast if it were being launched from like a weather station or something in Siberia, or
yeah.
or from somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. So it all just kind of melded together perfectly.
And did you guys ever think about making a whole movie about this kind of scenario? Because I read in the comments like people were telling they should like make the full movie, because I mean the video alone has big potential.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool to make a movie or something. I mean, I feel like there was like like Max Brooks, is that his name? Like Mel Brooks' son made that book World War Z, which uh, I, I think like a movie came out around, was maybe 2010 or something. But I feel like, I don't know. I feel like like there was enough like zombie content that came out at the time. Did I I mean, the video was like really well received when it came out. And there was a production company that reached out to me that like offered me an opportunity to like direct like a horror movie, like a slasher film or something. But I, being kind of like young and dumb at the time, had ideas about wanting to do like more like art films or something, and had very specific ideas of what I wanted to do. And I actually, like, ironically, like, didn't really want to do like heavy metal related things, or even work like within the horror genre, even though I kept doing horror stuff, and I clearly liked it. I had this kind of like a block or something, like that, maybe like a bias I got in college or something, where you just sort of like, like it's lowbrow, it's not serious, it's not academic, it's not things that like people respect. But I've, you know come come far away from like really caring about that kind of stuff, like, at this
Yeah.
point in my life.
And in the video, there was this Arkansas chemtrail conspiracy theory footage or whatever, but it was taken away from the video. Do you know why
Yeah,
they
that's
cut it
crazy.
up?
You I was surprised that you caught that. So like, I know that like Warner Brothers like got into a dispute with YouTube. I want to say in like maybe 2010 or 2012 or something, but like all the major labels like got into disputes with YouTube over like revenue sharing for clicks on ads and things like that. And I remember that this video like had like millions of views, and I was like very excited about that. And then like Warner Brothers took down all of their music videos off the site, and eventually they put them all back up. But when everything went back up, like the views like started back at zero. So
Yeah,
like we lost count of like a few million views for this video from when it first came out, which I was kind of bummed out about. But before it got taken down, you're right. There was like the full length version I created. I ended it with this epilogue where it was like this news report, like this real news report from Arkansas, where they found traces of like barium on the ground or something, like in a location where people reported like seeing like white stuff like falling from the sky shortly after like airplanes had flown overhead or something. Um, and I just took a couple audio samples from it, right? Like something that I thought was like fair use, like legal
yeah,
to, like it was short and it was like being reappropriated in a way that like made it a part of the work of the art. And I was like, okay, well, like nobody's going to get mad at me for like using these pieces because I'm sampling it like in a legal fashion. And um I want to say like maybe like 6 months after the video came out, maybe even sooner than that. But like I kind of got in trouble with the label because they got a cease and desist uh, letter from that news station saying that we were violating their copyright and that we needed to take that clip out. And I was like really surprised actually, because it was kind of weird because like it was like, there's no reference to like where that clip came from, and it's not very long, and it's just sort of like snuck into the end of this video. So it was kind of surprising to me that like someone working at this news station in Arkansas even came across the video, and then they did a cease and desist, which always made me kind of paranoid. Like, like had I like sampled something that like somebody else didn't want to know about, and then they were alerted to it and like coached to like tell the label to take it down or something. But I don't know. I think that's crazy. That probably didn't happen. It was probably just like like an algorithm like picked up the signature of it, and like it was like early copyright software that like alerted them to like their IP being stolen or something. Again, I argue that it was being used in fair use because it was very short clips, and it wasn't really that much different than somebody doing that for like a musical sample, like um but yeah, so that's what happened in that clip. Like we wound up like getting a cease and desist, so I like wound up like having to like recut it and take that out, which disappointed me because like again, I think that was like kind of like a fun twist where like because I had this real piece of audio that kind of because I sort of retroactively like worked parts of that news story into the overall story, like the idea that the United States discovered that if they like aerosolized barium and sprayed it out of airplanes, they could like kill the zombie spores with it, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that like this like local news crew in the United States comes across planes doing this and like trying to make people paranoid about the idea that like, well, maybe chemtrails are actually a preemptive defense against this like zombie attack thing that like the Soviets or like the Russians are like still contemplating doing to this day, or like you know
Yeah.
like a some sort of just like random terror group or something.
Yeah, and now this video has like 27 million views, But
So
how many views did you lose when they took down the video?
I thought it was like I thought we got up to like maybe like 8 or 9 million views or something like when it got taken down, but I could be mistaken. But I feel like I don't know. It was definitely the most views that anything I'd ever directed had gotten at the time, and so I was very excited about. I was like, wow, like all these people saw this thing I made. So when they took it down and we lost all the views, I was very bummed out because it, I got a lot of self-esteem or validation out of like, having this number of like, oh, well, people have like watched this thing that I made.
Yeah, I mean, it's and are you happy with the overall legacy of the video?
Yeah, I mean, I was I was like in like my mid 20s when I made that, and was still like, like I said, like I'm a self-taught filmmaker, and I was wearing a lot of hats and teaching myself to do a lot of different things at the time. And when I see the video, I'm like, I see myself as being like a very like a very novice writer and like a novice animator and a novice filmmaker and editor and all of these things. And like my friend Chris Eggleston did the editing on the video, which I think he did a great job with it. But like I also, because we did it so fast, like I mean it's a heavy metal song, right? Like it's this like heavy driven fast song, and I am trying to like impose my own will or idea of this like story that is made out of archival footage, and like I want it to have the feel of something old and authentic. And in doing that, it has to be cut a little bit slower. It has a different pace. It has a different feel to it, right? So, I do remember reading somebody had a criticism of the piece that like it felt like a short film with music rather than a music video. And I can't wholly disagree with that. I think that I think that was a valid criticism. I think if there were the one thing that I would have done differently is I would have asked for, if not more money, I would have asked for more time so that we could have created more footage so that it could have been cut a little faster and more briskly so that it complemented the music a little more editorially.
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of people like it too, so like maybe it's okay. It's now its own thing after like 10, 12 years or whatever. That like it just it is what it is now. So,
And
but I'm glad I got to do it. I feel very lucky I got to do it, and the band, like those guys were like incredibly nice. Like I remember they sent me like this coffin shaped boxed edition of Death Magnetic and gave me backstage passes to see them and sent me like a bottle of champagne and a thank you note and stuff, and I got to go see them like play in LA, and afterwards they like invited me to like have dinner with them backstage, and like I got to meet the guys from like Alice in Chains when I was there. Dave Grohl showed up. I met him. Um, so yeah, I don't. Yeah, it was really fucking cool. It was a very very cool experience. And again, like you know, uh, uh, people uh, like Kelly Sarno and Devin Sarno and Tom Osborne, like all like people at like production companies and the labels that I was working with at the time, like just like super super supportive of me, and yeah, it was a really cool opportunity to get to do it.
and were the Metallica guys happy about the video? Did they have some? Did they have some influence on the video, or they just let you do it the way you want to do it?
Yeah, I remember them being happy with it. I think they thought it was really cool. Like I said, they sent over like a nice little gift package, and they were nice enough to invite me to have some dinner with them after that show. So I think they were pretty happy with it. Normally bands don't ask me to come have dinner for them after a job, which is nice.
Yeah.
Well, Ronnie Vannucci from the Killers is actually that generous and kind as well. A really good guy. Um, but yeah, like I said, a lot of like the input or influence came from this idea of like wanting to do something like that, like had kind of like sort of a Cold War era uh, influence, because uh, like Kirk and James were like really into like comic books and like B movies and things from that era. So, and then like I said, uh, I think it was Peter Mensch who like kind of mentioned like like what if it's like a like Russia U.S. kind of thing. Um, so which I think I kind of maybe took it in a weird direction that nobody was intending me to go with it, because it's kind of a like a very ambiguous and like sprawling kind of piece where I tried to do some kind of again like weird like surreal psychoanalysis of like the psyche of the 20th century or something.
Yeah. And do you find it funny that people are connecting COVID with this video?
I mean, that makes sense. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously like a pandemic or some sort of like a huge natural disaster like on the scale, like yeah, I you know and I mean obviously too, like the United States is incredibly paranoid and aggressive in its stance towards towards China now in the 21st century in the way that they were towards the Russians and the Soviet Union at large in the 20th century. So yeah, it was definitely interesting to see people talking about it again because of everything that happened. Like the the last part of the video, like the part that takes place in the 70s with like the with the headless corpse and stuff. The two scientists, I just wanted to point out for people, and you might find it interesting, but the yellow, like the hazmat suits that the scientists are wearing, those are actually the costumes that they wore in the movie Outbreak. Did you ever see that?
I think I did. It's
Yeah,
like
it was like a movie from the 90s. It had like Dustin Hoffman was in it, and it was like, yeah, it was about a pandemic uh, that breaks out, and they're the rush to try to contain it. But
I think I know about the movie, but I'm not sure if I saw it or not.
yeah, if you do some Google searches for Outbreak, you'll see that like the costume that like Dustin Hoffman and the other actors are wearing, those are the same outfits that the guys in the music video are wearing.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. I didn't know that. Is there something that you didn't mention that's like some trivia, funny stuff about the video?
Uh, no, I think yeah, I mean the costumes from Outbreak, that there's that. Oh, I mean I guess this may be more for people to, for music fans, like the place where we shot the experiments for the Metallica video is also the place where I went back and shot the Asylum video for Disturbed. It's the same location.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And you also worked with Ghost, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And what was your experience with the Ghost guys? Do you like
Um,
working with them?
yeah, it's cool. It's chill. It's interesting. I mean, obviously, like everybody knows who Tobias is, right?
Yeah.
Like it's okay. I mean, I'm just thinking like 6 7 years ago, like it was more of a secret, like the identity around him or whatever. But I guess everyone knows that he is like Ghost, basically. I mean, he has a lot of like stories and ideas and things that like he has, I guess, kind of like a roadmap in his head of like what he's doing with like I would call it like a franchise, right? Like it's almost like a little musical like Marvel Cinematic Universe or something like. Um, but yeah, so like the Cerise video, like I think that he had kind of a clear idea of like wanting to do something that was sort of like he wanted to do like a talent show with like a kid who uh was like, it was like a miniature like a ghost band, and then it kind of like played out like Carrie. Um, that was actually shot at a place around the corner from where I used to live in LA. This place called the Philosophical Research Society, and if people are like interested in the occult, that is like a small center that this guy Manly Hall, who wrote The Secret Teachings of the Ages, founded in like the 1930s, and I used to go there like to listen to lectures and like go through their library, and they have like a bookstore where you can like buy like books on the occult and psychic phenomena and tarot cards and just all this cool shit. It's like a real time capsule. And like he collected a lot of stuff like like old like alchemical texts and things like from the medieval era, which I believe are all now like collected at like the archives of the Getty Museum. But yeah, Manly Hall had like the largest collection of like occultic materials in the United States, like in like the 40s and 50s. I guess like up through his death, and then it just sort of became like this kind of like weird little like I don't know, almost just like a weird kind of like a little community center that sort of like really fell off from its like height of its influence in the 30s and 40s. And I just found the place so charming and cute, and I somehow managed to get permission for us to use their auditorium to shoot the Cerise video in, which I think is like really cool. And then I got kind of like free range to. I came up with the idea for the rats video, which I guess like speaking of COVID is another video that
Yeah.
people have been commenting on because it's you know like another plague one. But I mean that was what like 2018. That one was pretty recent. Yeah, I had no way of knowing that 2 years later things were gonna happen the way they did. So yeah, that was kind of freaky.
And what about Alice in Chains? Because you also did like three videos for these guys. Are you a fan of them? Or?
Yeah, I first met them like maybe like 10 years ago. Like I think for Devil Put the Dinosaurs Here, they initially hired me to like write an entire movie like based around the album. Like every song was going to be a video that made up a chapter of a movie. Um and that obviously wound up not happening, but uh I did get to put together I guess yeah, it wound up being like three music videos. And I also like did a bunch of tour graphics for their tour in 2013, I think. So yeah, maybe it was 7 or 8 years ago when I met them. But yeah, that actually started out as like we are gonna like make like a whole movie for the album.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I really love this Hollow video because it's kind of
Oh, thanks.
weird. It reminds me a bit of
Yeah,
porn, because of this blob that's coming out from this guy, Some crazy
yeah,
shit.
it was. Yeah, I was like going through like a really depressing breakup and having some doubts about my career and like yeah, I don't know. I had some weird like some weird things going on in my life at that time, and I think it like kind of expressed itself like through that video. Somehow may have projected a lot of depression and anxiety into that.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. It's a great song and a great video because it's kind of,
Yeah,
and it kind of reminds me of some experimentation or stuff like that that's coming in the video. But
yeah.
it's cool.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Yeah, we yeah, and Andrew Whitaker shot that, who I think is just really, really cool DP. I really like his work. Um, that, um, yeah, that was fun to work on. That was actually um, the spaceship, like the set that we worked on was actually the remains of the set from like, do you know that TV show Firefly?
Yeah.
Like the guy who did like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I guess did like a science fiction show in the 90s or early 2000s called Firefly. Um, and I haven't seen it, but my understanding is that the like the set that we used was like it was used as like part of like the main spaceship on the show Firefly. Um, so I actually also like shot like a trailer for like Coheed and Cambria, that album, The Afterman. that spaceship was actually the same one, but like shot it in black and white because it was like in such bad condition. I kind of wanted to like hide some of the details that made it obvious that it was like made out of wood and falling apart.
Cool. And what was like the hardest video for you to make?
That's a good question. I mean, All Nightmare Long was a really hard video to make because I you know, like I said, I was pretty young when I worked on that, and I think somewhat inexperienced in ways, and uh, so I was coordinating a lot of talented people like that I enlisted to like work on various parts of animation and stuff, but like you know, I didn't like really understand like the workflow for those kinds of things, and like you know, I in retrospect like think like I you know probably wasn't like you know a particularly like reasonable person when it came to like understanding like how long people normally need to put stuff together, and I think I was as a single person like not quite as patient or coordinated with that project as I could have been. And you know, I took it upon myself to composite and put everything together and to like oversee like every shot in it and stuff. And you know, I a thousand thank yous to everyone who worked on that video, who you know really gave a lot, and you know gave way more than I even realized at the time. Uh, like it was, I think it was quite an accomplishment to turn out as much footage and shots as we did in as little time as we did. So yeah, I think that might have been like one of the more challenging videos for sure.
Yeah. And are you a fan of heavy metal?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like first and foremost, like most people who like meet me don't like have me pinned as being like a heavy metal fan. Um, you know, I grew up listening to like the Smiths and Bell and Sebastian and a lot of like more like electronic sort of like post punk kind of stuff in like the early 80s. Um, so people are always kind of surprised to hear that I like worked with so many heavy metal bands, but like I no, I enjoy the music. Um, I don't think that I listen to it that much casually, but I believe that it's an incredibly cinematic genre. Um, I think that it's very powerful music that lends incredible power to images, and so it's an absolute fucking pleasure to get to do music videos for heavy metal because it is the perfect soundtrack for getting to like tap into like horror and science fiction and like darker themes and stuff, and like um I don't know, I've always been a big fan of do you like Power Mad?
Is that a band? I,
Yeah, did you ever see like Wild at Heart?
no. Power Mad.
It's a David Lynch movie.
I saw the Elephant Man,
There's
but I think
yeah,
that's the
there's
only.
a there's a song called Slaughterhouse by Power Mad that's used in that movie, just such an incredible degree. Um, like I think probably like I mean, look, you can't go wrong with like I mean Metallica has had like multiple uh periods like the earliest albums are incredible, and then like of course like for me like I grew up like you know hearing like the Black album at like the roller skating rink when I was like 9 or 10 years old, and thought Enter Sandman was like the most insane thing I'd ever heard. And the later work has been cool too. I mean, I think the piece that I got to work on was really awesome. But yeah, I don't know. I think like Power Mad is like a good example of like I like really fast, like fast aggressive metal in that style. And I also like I enjoy Mastodon quite a bit too. Like those guys are so experimental and spacey and out there. Like it's a really inventive genre. I mean, the one thing I've discovered about heavy metal is like how like the guys that make it, like the men and women who make heavy metal music, like are always like the quietest, most thoughtful people, you know. They always like wind up being like very you know like very cerebral, or like very like in touch with their emotions, which I always thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have maybe some last words for this interview?
I I've been locked away at home for a year, so I was very delighted to get your email. Like I'm glad to hear that people are still interested in stuff that I've done. So thanks for reaching out. It's been a pleasure talking. I wanted to know, like, you're based in Serbia, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is I mean, what are your musical influences growing up, and like, I don't know, what did you think about this video when you first saw it? Or
Well, I
what did
think
you
I
think that I
was.
thought when you saw it?
Uh, it was weird. I don't know why, but I was a kid and I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" I remember because it was so long time ago, but uh, it was aggressive basically. And I was a kid. I don't remember how old I was, but it was unusual, to see something like that in heavy metal video. Because I remember at the time everybody was bitching about Metallica not being in the video, but
Hmm.
I really can't remember how I felt about it when it came out. You know? But it's a great video. That's why I contacted you.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, it's funny you say that. Like anytime like I've like done like a video project where it's like, mostly like some kind of like a narrative, or something like that. Like, I mean, yeah, fans love to see their bands in videos. Um I actually, yeah, I mean, I'll share like one story that I thought was kind of interesting. Was when I was working with Alice in Chains, um, uh, uh, Jerry Cantrell, he asked me to like make sure that I was shooting the like it kind of gave me some insight into what rock bands and heavy metal bands like in a music video, and they were like, make sure that you like are like cleanly shooting the guitars, like make sure that like we can really see like the fingers on the frets, and like what they're doing, because I guess a lot of people like learn how to play guitar
Yeah.
by watching their like favorite musicians like actually play the song in a music video, uh which I think is really cool. Like I'd never like considered like the utility of a video as like actually being a way to like educate somebody about music like that. But um yeah, that always kind of stuck with me. Like it's like one of the reasons that like people enjoy uh, seeing bands play in their videos.
Yeah. I mean, it's helpful,
For
because
sure.
it's extreme music, and you know, you can learn it by ear, but just by looking at their fretboards, you can actually see a lot. But if you want to do it hard way, you just learn it by ear, which is even great
Hmm.
because that's how you improve yourself. So I don't know. And how can people find you on social media? Do you have Instagram, Facebook, or?
Yeah, yeah. I've got I just Robo Shobo. You can find me on Instagram. I've like pretty much nuked all of my other like social media accounts because I just it just takes up too much time and mental headspace. But yeah, I if you look up like Robo Shobo on Google, like there's a site with like a reel up that is readily available, and then I have an Instagram page where I sound like an old person. I just said Instagram page. But you can find my Instagram account. I occasionally will like post like stills from like new projects or things.
Yeah, cool.
Um, so so yeah, like I said, I'm working on Unreal right now to do like a completely uh like a photoreal digital science fiction short called Phantom Limb. And I'll probably be posting some progress on that as it goes. But I uh, if anyone's listening to this who wants to produce a feature, I've got 3 or 4 scripts sitting around ready to go.
Awesome. So thank you so much for your time and for this interview.
Yeah, totally. It was a pleasure.
So have a nice day.
You too. Take care, man.
Bye bye.
Hey people, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Agoraphobic News. Please like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel to help us grow. You can also support us on Patreon by becoming one of our patrons. And big shout out to our patron Season of Mist for supporting our work. So stay tuned for another interview and keep it metal.